Okay, it is really awesome to have gotten at least 72 hours of the rest mentioned in the first video. This is the one that played at the beginning and accidentally cut off by my finger, touching the record button, and you know how phones are when you actually touch the screen while you're recording, depending on the functions and the settings. Now, the other one that I posted on my other page, at a point in time I was realizing and knowing that people would be like, oh, all over the place trying to digest information in a sort of one take. No, I'm going to have to use superstition in English translation for that fact. On Zimbabwean, Wajishona, or any language, understand that superstitions are really bad. Now, the point that I'm going to get to right at the beginning of a lot of things that I mentioned there, and the induction of high school and the actual process of some people was very torturous to each other, which is not good. And just to mention that meeting a brother who was a younger brother, and he has grown, obviously, as people do transition from secondary school to tertiary and then become regular people or civilians. And I'm not speaking sarcastically, that is also an evil thing. Emphatically and emphasizing is very important. And he said that he's, well, at least looking through the books of the prophets, and I recalled an issue of genealogy recordings in the Bible. Genesis right at the beginning is very specific when it comes to Adam and the genealogy of, and if you want to say even the genealogy of, and mother's not supposed to be teaching their boy childs in a certain way, let's just be honest about some things. That's why I'm trying to get right into the thick of things. That was one of the very awkward situations which did not have to be done in a theater, which used to be Rainbow Theater, that where the Master of High Court's office initially built their bigger station there, and the small office of paperwork, well, semi-paperwork leading to the larger paperworks. Like I said, getting right back into it. And seriously, because of the not taking seriously the in the beginning song, and somewhat in the process of the whole technique exposing life story and having to create the technique life story blog, and what happened to the MacBook during the whole Manzwizio Shoko sequel of Shoko Moyochena into Manzwizio, the official now, after passing through the mixtape phase. And if I call those fires, that's a very serious superstition for other people who would now be on another side of things. Well, you'd want to call it administrative. There's certain portions of it that kind of are, but honestly, getting right back to the point, this portion of our presentation, I'm not sure if John Methuen is still around, and you'd have to end up saying certain things about the name John and the number of Johns met, myself. And the brother I'm talking about individually is called Matthew Bragg. I asked my son about him because he mentioned it one time about having met him, and never even talked to me about years and years of those sort of things. That's too much to describe, so I'm going to stick to the point of when John Methuen, and going through the literal genealogy of Cain and Abel from Adam and Eve, and the way it's written, and people trying to take things as if it's a strand of a straight line. It's very clear, very specific. And when multiple husbandry, in terms of oneness of flesh, between a singular man and a singular woman, no longer two but one. Yes, they can walk around in two different places. That is a very obvious thing. We're now talking about faithfulness and commitment inside and out. It is very clear and very obvious about the mark of the beast being doctrinal in teaching about three areas of life that will not change, have not, and never were anything else. Because in eternity being necessary for us to have time passed and measured, that should already make sense. All right, so, and I'm going to flip the camera for each portion of things and be very patient for people to at least look at it. I'm going from a physical Bible, and it is a New King James translation, which is not funny because the person who got that one for me, or if I say ordered, I'm not even going to be sarcastic to say did that on purpose, knowing that I wanted a King James version of the original King James. A version that my mom had actually given me of. It had gotten worn from actually reading and studying and underlining things. This was not far anywhere at all from understanding and knowing that much. So, we are literally, and let me turn the camera at first point, because the people's in-betweens and such are very consistently annoying. It would be like a vague, humorous comment to be like, oh wow, this phone looks very familiar. I remember a sister from between the two families of Morapas and Matetos having a sort of phone like this when it came to the rollout of cellular technology, and you just want to stop right there. It's not even funny to laugh at. So, before you get to Cain murders Abel, that should be a place to start, and I'm just going to start right at the genealogy parts, because if that in the beginning song did not make sense, it should be just listened to or reviewed even in the writings on the Revelation 18 snapback blog. That should be obvious. So let me flip the camera. All right. So this is where we start, and we will start at the birthings of the two children, right here. Now Adam knew Eve his wife, and she conceived and bore Cain, and said, I have acquired a man from the Lord. Then she bore again, this time his brother. Cain was a tiller of the ground. We have divulged into that already. That is plants and fruitfulness of things that do not move on their own in terms of living things, which people are not. Okay. And in the process of time, it came to pass that Cain brought an offering of the fruit of the ground, right? The then she bore again argument, we don't want to go there yet. There's an obvious sequence, and people would obviously have gone and read through this before. Laughing and chuckling and thinking it's funny and as if you can't see it is nonsense. Don't do that. Whether it was twin births, and we've already been through that one, the tab on the Revelation 18 snapback blog speaking about male and male twin birthings, male and female twin birthings, and people asking where would it start, and the way genealogies are recorded, knowing that they're male-oriented. Eve had not been named yet. Adam gave her name. Should make sense. Okay. Right. So Abel also brought off, and we know the argument between people that till things that you lead to water, walking the chicken and walking the dog and walking the hamster should not really be jokes or funny. It's an actual thing of life, in fact, of living things. A tree does not uproot itself and walk to a certain place. Some people actually being very, very sarcastic in thinking that they're being humorous. So where we want to get right to is why this starts here saying the family of Cain, and why 5 goes to saying the family of Adam, and we're talking about Seth, right? We already understand that part that I just explained there in very brief sentencing, which should be digestible, already have been digested between twin birthings, right? We already get that clarity for the reason. This is bone of my bone and flesh of my flesh. For this reason, a man and woman will leave their mother and father and become one flesh, right? This is after all that. Take note of that. I'm not just trying to tweet things or just be TikTok-sized and things like that, but it is a fact and to be understood. So, Cain's blood and Abel's blood, understanding that much. There's so much in just those first 5 chapters that people need to focus and see what they're reading and not lie to themselves like it doesn't make sense. So after Cain rises up about, people have the argument, it was something about wives or things. It's just very obvious, because one was complaining about being the tiller of the ground, the other one was a tiller of living things and bringing the fat of them, right? First fruits and such. It had nothing to do with people at that point. Arguing between, plants are easier to tend, or animals are easier to tend because you don't have to prune them and monitor the pruning, but that growth is technically a bit slower. At least these will be able to be led to water. They drink by themselves. Plants you'd have to water yourself each and every time, and be diligent if you are watering certain ones as well. The earth does provide rain and such for them, which doesn't void anybody for having to, or the word having to now is being a bit too lawful. We're talking about liberty, while living things are also at liberty in terms of tilling themselves. So all the way down the genealogy of the family of Cain. Then Cain went out from the presence of the Lord and dwelt in the land of Nod, right? And Cain knew his wife. Oh, so she was already there, right? Through all that. Okay, cool. And she conceived and bore Enoch. And he built a city and called the name of the city after the name of his son Enoch. To Enoch was born Irad, and Irad begot Mehujael, and Mehujael begot Methuselah, and Methuselah begot Lamech. Then Lamech took for himself 2 wives. The names of one was Ada, and the name of the second was Zillah. Now this is a problem. That's literally where the problem is with understanding. People go, oh no, that was right. He did right. No, how, why, and where from? Okay, because a person, and it's a him in every single language, This should be understandable. This really should be understandable. It needs to be understood at that point in time. People will see backwards. They'll be like, oh, wow. So Cain graduated from tending livestock to... This is some people's way of thinking. And you need to understand it correctly. Then it's not that sort of thing to think in that way. They could have also been doing each other favors, is how livestock also eat the actual tendings that Cain was doing, right? The younger one, being that people will try to read too exactly in text, then she bore again, just because it doesn't have the word conceived and bore. Trying to make that being like, oh no, they were twins, they were the two twins. No. Stop there. Even, what they call them? There's twins, which is 2. Then triplets is 3. Then 4 is supposed to be quadruplets. You don't want to have to... This is what I'm saying. Politicizing that is not the point, but we already see an order. So first male and female, then next male and female makes sense, at least just for context sake, right? Older and younger brother. Whether people want to dwindle the time frame to having come out the womb and come out the womb, this needs to just be stopped. That sort of like superstition debate and stuff like that, right? So right when we get here to Enoch was born Irad, and Irad brought Mehujahel, and Methuselah was born from Mehujahel, and Methuselah begot Lamech. So this Lamech guy ends up seeing 2 people. This name is not there yet anywhere else. Ada, okay, interesting. And the name of the second Zillah, oh, interesting, okay. And Ada bore Jabal. He was the father of those who dwell in tents and have livestock. These 3 occupations are very specific. There's fruits of the earth and there's livestock, and the one is now awesome because it comes to do with music and productivity. His brother's name was Jubal. He was the father of all those who play the harp and flute. These 2, a harp and a flute, in terms of also percussive instruments, there's another area to go elsewhere and talk about things that were called. It's got in the English tongue the word salt in it, but we're just going to stick here. That's in the book of Daniel, right? In terms of the word. So his brother's name was Jubal, and the third one, as for Zillah, now this is Ada first, bearing Jabal, who was the father of those who dwell in tents and have livestock. His brother's name was Jubal. In fact, to make a tent, you may need a lot of skin-oriented things to be able to weather the weather. That's not a joke. This is very humorous and very awesome to smile at. And yeah, you know, the ha-ha-has is awesome, but you know, let's focus. His brother's name was Jubal, brother, okay? And he was the father of all those who play the harp and flute. As for Zillah, she also bore Tubal-Cain. All right. Now, we don't want to get again into debates of why Jesus had to say the abominations that Paul wrote down of the Corinthians having issues of a person having their father's wife and issues. Please, like, honestly, that's too much, and you don't have to conspire. So an instructor of every craftsman, and giving names from fathers to sons is not a evil issue or anything, but that makes sense why it's Tubal-Cain. An instructor of every craftsman in bronze and iron. Blacksmith, craftsman. When you get soil, you put it in a kiln, know which kind of soil it is for you to get either iron, either silver, either zinc, or whichever, to be able to make harps and flutes. And harps obviously have strings, and strings need things that are also makeable for holding down tents, right? So please, like, it needs to be understood. And the sister of Tubal-Cain. This is an interesting wording here, because the sister's mentioned, but the name now, and it's like, okay, Nama. And why mentioning of sister there? All right, so that's the family Cain up to there. And why it ends here will be very clear. Then Lamech said to his wives, Ada and Zillah, hear my voice. Wives of Lamech, listen to my speech, for I have killed a man for wounding me, even as... And he's referring to what Cain did. Now, the name Cain, technically, is not seen ever again here again. Enoch's rapturing, and I'm using that word in the right sense, of not the kind of taken that people will take in using the word rapture, but translated is the word that was literally used in the proper English version for Enoch's being translated and having written. Yes, there's a book of Enoch, but literally the same thing can be seen. And why I said that understanding of section 1, 2, and 3, understanding this mark thing, no multiple husbandry. Right? Okay. So by this point in time, Lamech's complaining about that, and then, all right, now it says a new son. And Adam knew his wife again, and she bore a son and named him Seth. For God has appointed another seed for me instead of Abel, whom Cain killed. And as for Seth, to him also a son was born, and his name was Enosh. Then men began to call unto the name of the Lord. All right, okay, so that ends there. Chapter 5, the family of Adam. And it's kind of summarizing this portion here, right where we started. This is quite an expanding of understanding that this is the book of the genealogy of Adam, who taught his sons, right? Okay, from his teaching. In the day that God created man, he made him in the likeness of God. He created the male and female and blessed them and called them mankind in the day they were created in the image of God, not like animals that were just literally fruits of the earth in its likeness. In the sea also in its likeness, if you will, that's already clear. So Adam lived 130 years, begat a son in his own likeness, after his image, and named him Seth, because he was made in the image of God, just how in the beginning God said, let us, speaking to the heavenly hosts and angels of unfallen, being brothers and sisters, as Revelation chapter 19 makes sense. After he begat Seth, the days of Adam were 800 years. That's quite a good amount of time to be able to raise a single person to understand that much of righteousness. And he had sons and daughters. This phrasing here, and he had sons and daughters, some people do not fully digest and understand why they're written like that. They should, and please, by this point in time, it should make a lot of sense. So, all the days that Adam lived were 930 years, and he died. Okay, at least that's recorded in terms of total, about 1,000 years. So, having witnessed a lot, also in the continuation that's afterwards, things that he did witness up to the chapter 6 in Noah's Ark. But let's be honest here. So, all the days of Seth were, and when we're speaking about Seth now, Seth lives 105 years and begot Enosh before begetting. Okay, interesting. People try to politicize things. Oh, when should someone have their first child and things like that? That's not to be politicized. That's not to be debated. There's too many elements and layers of things to talk about there. All right, so after he begat Enosh, Seth lived 807 years and had sons and daughters. Okay, so all the years of Seth were 912 years, and he died. All right, cool. That's just almost about the same time as Adam as well. Enosh lived 90 years and begot Canaan. Okay, after he begot Canaan, Enosh lived 815 years and had sons and daughters. And you don't get angry at certain things, but multiple husbandry is obviously already an option voidness. Completely. So you keep going down all the way during the genealogies here. By the time you do get to Noah, this is a very awesome and interesting part, right? Lamech, and this is Lamech still alive, right? At the point here, Lamech lived 182 years and had a son. Okay, so at least we do know that from here, that Lamech took for himself, okay, that's an issue. In the first birthings with Adam bearing Jabal, was the father of those who dwell in tents and have livestock, his brother's name being Jubal. So it's, okay, Jabal and Jubal. He was the father of all those who play the harp and flute. Okay, that's those two of brotherliness. And then as for Zillah, now is the other one, and this is a problem. Did he have a fight with the first one, with Adam? Or did Adam be the one to be departing and do the same thing that Eve did, trying to instruct the male child? Why? And people think it offensive or evil to say, oh no, so you're telling me a mother can't tell her son what to do? No, please understand one certain thing, because people totalitarianize too much. And I'm turning the camera this way because obviously it's a point in time where I said, no, I had enough rest at that point in time, at least go this far and digress and understand, wow, what has been going on and why people needed to at least get some clarity on those kind of things, right? It's that important. It really is. It's very, very relieving. So, this point in time here, okay, you realize two brotherlinesses, and this is now from a different wombage. There's linage and wombage, and they're supposed to be unison, and oneness of flesh is eternal. Fact. Please, because we know angels are eternal, unfallenness of eternal, right? The ones that fell departed from their oneness completely. Cannot conceive and cannot multiply. Right. So, now, since this is clear, and that's why I said you'll find if you ever open your own Genesis and understand just looking at those two, well, yeah, they are very specific. Dwelling in tents and having livestock, having to do with animals and those fruits. And they obviously would have had a lot of work to do. His brother's name Jubal, the players of the harp and the flute, which needed construction, instructor of every craftsman in bronze and iron. There are a lot of things that are also accustomed to bronze and iron, as we know that the elements are many. And the sister of Tubal came by that time of recording. Recordings aren't just written all the way at once. somebody can, oh, okay, this person was born, this person was born. By the time the significance that people will at least note, right, it should be clear. So this person was very, very busy instructing, oh, so how do you make bronze? And remember the issue about the in the beginning song, they had not yet been introduced into how to make fire. Then, and it's not an argument. It's not an argument. It was for both of them to have the knowledge of, between Adam and Eve, right? The knowledge of knowing that animals were food. It's not like Adam didn't know that by the time he was unfound a suitable helper, him having the conversation with God, already knowing that, no, these are not made in your image, they are fruits of the earth. See, this is a serious issue. Now, even the writing of it in the family of Adam and the new son part, well, let's start with the first one. And it says that she said that now Adam knew his Eve wife, and she conceived and bore Cain and said, I have, and yeah, his wife, right? It would be nice to also understand that from both of them saying that, I have acquired a man from the Lord. Then she bore again. The she afterwards is also quite significant in that wording there. And there's no accusation issues. That's why I said politicizing things is not cool. And Adam knew his wife again, and she bore a son and named him Seth. For God has appointed another seed for me instead of Abel, whom Cain has killed. And as for Seth, to him also a son was born and named Enosh. These men began to call on the name of the Lord. The problem with people in that statement that I just made there is all totalitarianize it and trying to say that also one of the kids ended up having... No. This is an instruction, teaching, and doctrine issue. And because even just any portion of why she would end up needing to talk to a snake, there's not only one snake in the garden, her husband was clearly there, and they were both in the knowledge of that. And like, you know, it takes a long time for you to name every single beast of the field. Even if you just talk about that only, and also the things of the sea and the birds of the air, which are part of the beast of the field, but understanding firmament organization and the experience of each bird, even eagles, even sparrows, even, you know, and such, being part of his naming. So it's a very long time, and we can already see that from the 900 years of each, and people are again trying to totalitarianize that, oh, each one of these gave them their each own kind of naming. No, this is a very simple thing to understand, that also that kind of record keeping is an individually, amongst many other things, important thing of life. Even the kinds of instruments that you would make from just the two kinds of designs here, a flute and a harp. A flute is a reed instrument, a harp is a stringed instrument, like a guitar. There's a lute, and then there's also, well, there's a sitar, guitar, there's, well, now we have electric guitars, and we have pianos, which are literal, well, it's percussive, but the hammer strikes a string that is tuned a certain way for each melody and such like that, so it should be understandable. That's why I said it's a lot of information. So by the time, and it's not even to sum up everything in the end of it, technically I've already covered everything, but just having the Lamech part brought up here again, and he called his name Noah, this is Lamech's son again, the writing of it is quite significant. He called his name Noah, saying, this one will comfort us concerning our work in the toil of our hands, because of the ground is the Lord. You know, that statement again, and only being this wise will give you that much understanding. If you look at it clearly, God didn't curse the ground. The person felt like that every time it was recorded that way. Even Adam himself was not supposed to address the matter in that sort of way. They were going to learn how to make fire eventually, obviously. So God not fast forwarding things to just being able to make fire is not, that's not a curse. The work of the hands, it's a lot of things to do after you now know how to process animals and such. And it's not just like, oh, so the animals try to like jump in fires and things like that. No, please, like, understand that much about teaching and instruction, and a bunch of, you know, divulging layered issues. When it comes to people's misunderstanding, and I'm getting to the point where I was talking about Noah's children there, and I do know that, Jesus, wow, the point that I made about Noah not being drunk, he was not the child that was trying to see the interaction of his mother and father's oneness in the place that it's none of their business. In fact, that's not supposed to be children's witness of how, the process. Like, honestly, the nakedness part, we like are very clear about that. Clothing is supposed to be done. The reason they weren't ashamed, Adam and Eve, is because there were no other people yet. The children are not yet born, and they were going to get to know how to make clothes and stuff, then be able to make children. After they've made children, they're not going to make the children, well, you know, the nakedness part still, that's a different issue. By the time the child is born, that's none of his business, etc. And God in the Spirit that is indwelling of holiness, is not harmful or delinquent or perverse or anything of the such nature, is very clued into that sort of thing. So it's very easy to understand through the whole process of the flood. And oh yeah, here's the point. The names given here are the children of Noah were Shem, Ham, and Japheth. The child is not mentioned there yet, and conception, well, it's a long time. This is just text. Yes, we know that. And so, okay, that's the wicked mess of man and judgment and such, and that goes on. The Noah pleases God, and he builds the ark. And by the time we see them loading the ark, should be where we're going now. Let's make sure about that. Let's make sure about that. Okay. The great flood. Noah's deliverance. That's after. So Noah, with his sons, his wife, and his sons' wives, went into the ark because of the waters of the flood. Okay. That's how it's recorded. Exactly. So, by the time the ark lands, we have God blessing Noah, his sons, and said to them, be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth in the fear of you. And that's clear on why all things good and such. So, we have the conception of the one child here, Noah and his sons. Now the sons of Noah who went out of the ark were Shem, Ham, and Japheth, and Ham was the father of Canaan. Oh, awesome. Okay, father of Canaan. These three were the sons of Noah, and from these the whole earth was populated. Awesome. And Noah began to be a farmer, and he planted a vineyard. Then he drank of the wine and was said to be, and we would wonder where the recording was and the presumption of that, and became uncovered in his tent. This has to do with oneness of flesh, which is uncovering of clothing. And Ham, the father of Canaan, saw, and it's the father, you see, saw the nakedness of his father, and told his two brothers outside. But Shem and Japheth took a garment, laid it on both their shoulders, and went backwards and covered the nakedness of their father. Their faces were turned away, and they did not see their father's nakedness. So Noah woke from this accusing here now, when that word is first seen, knew what his younger son had done to him. As the younger or youngest, but honestly, let's put this in context. Then he said, and this part here is again, like I said there, this is the son of the person that saw him naked. Point still made. Wild is not complaining about this being a new King James version, but there is a point to it. In fact, like the word meat in Genesis, plants being given for meat to man, also meat to the animals. Then the animals there in chapter 9, when it says this here, in the fear of be fruitful and multiply in the fear of them, right? Every moving thing that lives shall be for food. This is meat in the King James version. It's not just food. So, right. This is, like I said already, again clear, and it's got to do with that. And maybe causings for multiple husbandry. What would now the person who, okay, let me see, and Ham, the father of Canaan, right? And this is pronouncing a curse on it because he knows that Ham is going to now teach Canaan as if it's appropriate to see his father's nakedness. Basically that. See, I like this part here. A servant of servants he shall be to his brethren. And now knowing that we are all children of the Lord, no matter what age, even a father of any age always knows that they are still a child of the Lord, as well as the mother is well knowing daughtership and such like that. He said, blessed be the Lord, the God of Shem, and may Canaan be his servant, and may God enlarge Japheth, and may he dwell in the tents of Shem, and may Canaan be his servant. And Noah lived after the flood 350 years, so all the days. That's where we're literally stopping right there. Problem with people's thinking, oh, just because the name Cain wasn't written, continuously here. This is why people will have that. Okay, what about the many sons and daughters of each time that's recorded in that fashion, right? I think at a point in time, people should be very clear why this now is written here, the family of Adam. This one's here written the family of Cain. Am I making an excuse as if okay, it's not about the unforgivableness. This is the Lord's, technically says vengeance, but this person did not want to take accountability at a bit of time when he did. Now, the problem now was what to do with the offspring and how they were going to react of hearing the story, if you will, technically. Therefore, whoever kills Cain, vengeance shall be taken on himself, which means killing people is evil. Just like from the beginning, right there, right? And things that some people may not have thought of after you've digested the in the beginning song, in the story, in the writing out of. It's good to give life amongst people and to maintain life. It's evil to kill amongst people. It's good to kill animals because they are also food and meat for people. Right? That should be clear. That should be very, very clear. So in understanding at least that much, and it's serious how literally it seems as if things are playing over again. Being 38 years old at this point in time, this year, at the end of it, I remember being a Unity baby in being at 27 years old. It was interesting. Each time people would look at a December birth into the next year, because it's like you're only days old before the next year starts. Of New Year's of 30 December, then the 1st of January starts, and it was one of those interesting things of other people's weird debates, but no, it doesn't change anything for record's sake in actual aging and such like that. And in fact, people over-exaggerating the significance, or again, it's technically a superstition with birthdays being like, wow, it's your birthday at the beginning of the year, at the end of the year, in the middle of the year. That's not the point. You know, every single day you see people, I think we're absolutely happy that people are alive. That's a good thing. So I'm gonna end the video here. I'm just making sure. Yep, that's definitely it. So that bro that was talking about studying the book of the prophets and what genealogies and stuff like that, about Chronicles, and let's put them all in the three: Samuel, Kings, and Chronicles. In layers, there's genealogy in Chronicles written, and people not understanding how much to discern and decide for themselves. It's obviously very clear with the Holy Spirit that you can look at the same sort of thing, and that being the problem throughout why the New Testament is that way. And that having been at least 10,000 to 15,000 years up to Jesus' first coming, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, very clear in the Blue Letter Bibles, Harmony of the Gospels, that's also there amongst the ministry resources. So yeah, like I said, can end it here. It's 30 minutes long, I know. It's not like talking too fast. There's way too much energy and you're going to have to go to sleep like really fast and like, oh, spend another couple of days. No, it's very serious. It's part of the thing that people were trying to avoid. Oh, because he's going to tell people the truth about it. Well, past millennial, we're going to have a very exponential increase in people in terms of younger ages that need to know the truth about these things, and people lying about them. Why mention of the mountain gatherers? Why mention of people not wanting people to read? Why mention of people not wanting people to write? That's very disgusting. Like at that point, we cannot be happy about that. That's not normal. It's like saying, oh, you say something and you just don't think about having said it. It's really bad. So the point made there about women instructing men, and why I said not to be so superstitious about it, is because honestly, oh wow, dude, this doesn't mean if your sister says, dude, is asking a person if somebody else is there. Like you can't talk to the person, or you must not learn that somebody else is there. That's the totalitarianism that is nonsense. Like it's very bad. What should we cook today? They're asked by a man to a woman, not the same category of thing. The instruction issue is quite in the directive of oneness of flesh, if you will, and it's a very light example why we don't have such a thing as relationship counseling in church. And technically, if people are looking for advice, it's there in 1 Corinthians 7. Believer and believer relationships are of eternal faithfulness, so there's really no question what those people are going to be to each other. They're going to be eternally faithful. Believer and non-believer relationships, which are clear in the teaching and doctrine of this is between them, and obviously anybody can see that everything God made being good, soils, plants, waters, and animals, breathables as well, no smell politics or taste politics, etc. and whatnot. And then oneness of flesh being in eternal truth, the eternal truth, and then stewardship, freely giving and freely receiving. It's not for people to like people and everybody. Oh, are they stewarding the gifts of their house and the things that they have in there? Are they, or when they walk on the street, are they passing out lollipops? Are they passing out envelopes, or are they passing out the unrighteous man that people are quote unquote seemingly as if it's forced to use, but not really? And that's a whole lot of too many layers and layers and layers of things to understand. Again, like I said, that should be very clear for people. The only reason that it's not is because of people not wanting to take the time to discern and think. That one is pretty simple because it's a matter of order. The understanding again comes because it was a very bad portion in time, and I don't even want to reiterate the words of people laughing, like saying, oh, it's blasphemy, people that shared the same womb. Well, right from the beginning, you're like, okay, so there's Adam and Eve. Okay, I wonder where the other half is going to come from. It's a bit serious, because at that point in time, people will be calling, oh, no, this is a person from, okay, if you're a very dark-skinned person, that's a very light-skinned person. It has children, the light-skinned and the dark people, and the dark-skinned person's children saying, that's my friend now. Well, no, in spirit and truth in Christ, that's your sister and also child of God issue. That's kind of like jumping the bridge from brother and sister and coming back to the other way of it seems lesser or etc. And that's a honestly very specific describe why whether you share the same womb or whether you don't, brothers and sisters in Christ in spirit and truth, being redeemed from all people, nations, tribes, and tongues, should be obvious. The only, and I don't want to call it booking, but the word of God is the actual truth and that kind of thing. So 30 minutes in and 5 minutes outro, if you will, outro. That needed to be put together with literally what I'm going to put after this video. Yeah, because the first video that I recorded, and I didn't because I was beginning to make the little quote-unquote Revelation 18 snapback collage again, but the presentation of it kind of is coming together. But honestly, the ones that I said were on the other Facebook account, well, okay, it's one of those. If people want to force themselves to misinterpret and not understand, okay, what about 1999 and all that mention and etc and whatnot. There's 2 videos now. Yeah, one is an hour long and the other one is again an hour long, and then it's about 3 of them put together. Yeah, I'm not gonna waste your time is not the issue about doing the intro and the outro and putting music and such and then highlighting and typing. It's really that important. So peace, y'all. Catch y'all later. Yo, what's up, guys? It's your boy TeQ NiQ, Kudzai Simbarasha, David Morapa, and I know you can see a tiny little stain on the shirt of hoodie that I have posted, at least the divulge and understanding of where I got it from. And there's a lot of, when I say a lot of, it's a lot of missing information. You see, for the past week I've been dealing with this portion here. A bro's mom and dad showed up about 2-3 weeks ago, seeing his mom walking the dog in the neighborhood and wondering, okay, remembering relations in terms of, well, you have to call some people as the people as they are. The Caucasian community of Zimbabwe in the past 10 or 12 years at least seems to have been dwindling, or you don't have to say like, oh, trying to be found or etc or whatnot, but anyway, bro and I in high school was quite interesting, him having been a very good guitar player, and some of the first few songs of very, very, very low quality Fruity Loops 3, and I mean version 3, after the first and second one not even making you able to arrange loops, you just like make one and it'll be like, okay, it's hidden there in the coding or whatnot. It seems as if I'm talking a lot of stuff besides where I actually want to get to. Maybe you don't yet, and because I'm holding a paper like this, you'd be like, what's TeQ gonna do this time? In context, and please mind this, because I noticed that when the devil attacks you, tries to make you seem tired, I felt like I had to rest a lot, review a lot, recall a lot, reflect on a lot, and in the ins and outs of goings out of the house and such, having seen her walking the dog for the second time, actually stopping the car and talking, besides the first time at least waving, and remembrance is very key. Noticing that they were like, staying just down the road, and I'm like, wow, okay. Not awkwardness, but due to the nature of TeQ NiQ exposing life story, I saw the devil is trying to keep you from something that is really right there, and being patient and restful is the best thing to do. The Lord never has wanted me to go out in terms of like, oh dude, you're like really battered and bruised right now, like even physically you must, because being a soldier in Christ remains you having to endure all hardships and such. And suffrage is, in Christ, is really not of that nature. When you do realize the devil is so stupid that the rest that you end up taking puts you right in the middle of the battlefield that you need to be orientably focused on, instead of running away, seeming like you're being outworking by the flesh, and finishing what really is finished in the spirit, right? So it like went down a bit. So much was brought into remembrance. In fact, the time that my leg swelled up, it's there on the TeQ NiQ life story blog. I've posted it numerous times on Facebook. Enough people have seen it, but in terms of the relationship and the idea of how some people, and I can't say it wasn't in my awareness, were trying to claim is, oh no, dude, when you see TeQ on the streets praying for people, like if you see him like, oh, stopping the car or anything, or like, just, oh dude, it's crazy, it doesn't work or something like that, about praying for people and seeing them healed. In fact, for Jesus himself, because of the as recorded things and the way people misrepresentatively view some things, like, okay, the Pula Bethsaida moment, like as if it was only the one person, just because he said, take up your bed and arise and go, and he did, as if nobody else did. And you'd want to say after, or how much time after, which is interesting for most people's discernment of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, and Acts, of like, well, that's 33 years at least, 3 to 4 decades of account of his life, right? So when you read something like that, that could be a lot of time, even the letting down of the person through the roof and etc. And why note about false witnesses and people trying to claim, no, the person never got healed, or some people even being sent, some actually being sick, some actually not, and the different things that God had been explaining that we do, just understand why 1 Corinthians 12 to 14 speaks about love being the greatest gift, and it having healing and the sincerity coming from people's actual hearts, and some people thinking the wrong way of things, trying to, as from where you've learned it, DHT Doncaster 2010, Harry Blaze, Divine Healing Technician sermons, but the testimonies of it, mechanically thinking of the love of God and the outworking is the lowest form of even considering. So I'm looking out the window and the birds that were there, and they're actually so chilled right now. The one just popped out because I'd just been searching birds on my Google, and I was like, wow, I used to have a bird book. A book about the kinds of birds you'd find in Zim or in Southern Africa or etc. Not all of them, of course, because there are a lot, dude, in every single region and place. But the experience that you have when you do ministry on the point of awareness. Some people actually do ministry in the point of unawareness. And when they receive the actual inklings and followings of it, maybe suffering things like attacks like this, because the swelling of the legs that happened was because I was on assignment in Harare at a specific place and time. I'm not going to act like my parents didn't know where I was. It's just their own denial. I remember at an early age and stage of my life, about 3 years old, growing to hear and understand that my parents are trying out a walk of faith, of actually praying for people. This red light is on in Mr. Magora's house. That's not even cool, dude. Like this, bruv. No, you actually want to scoot the chair over? No, seriously. I actually want to, flip the camera. Dude. If I can zoom into that, right there in this house. What? It's a really bright red on the side. Why would the bright red light... This is... What time is it? Honestly? It's 5:30. Why? And what for? I'm staying on point in this point in time, knowing that... and now I'm cutting the video by mistake. Seriously. Wow. I have to zoom out just to get that bearing again. That's distractive. That's so distractive. I'm so, not happy about that. Alright. I'm talking about people's walk of faith and actually understanding that, wow, when my legs did swell up in the assignment I was on and the things I actually had to endure, what I'm trying to play back or at least introduct here, I was hoping was going to take 10 seconds, seeming jokingly, which is really not. The point in time of understanding how much knowledge and wisdom that God has given us through the things that our Heavenly Father created and gave us to steward amongst. Well, it seems foolish, the display that I have, but it has to do with stains on glasses. And it would seem like this is a really bad picture to take, but at least I'm doing it in video, so I'm gonna have to make a stain in a glass for it to make sense out of the rest of it, and there will be a second partage. I kind of stopped talking about walks of faith and everybody actually having one, some people picking up on details later, but it'll make sense. It definitely will. What was interesting about the resting time was the reflect on the year that it is, 2024, people's superstitions, people's understanding of what's going on in spirit and truth, other people using others as excuses, next door neighbors and people in social communities. If I had been living in a house full of people that were doing certain things or otherwise, it would be another sense of making in terms of, well, the beginning of 2023 was interesting as post of technique exposing life story things compared to at least what trying to put up on the technique life story issue. So scooting the chair over really does not do any obstruction. It actually puts you right in this. And at that point in time, it's too familiar to the 1999 nonsensical scares that people had about the fearfulness and fear-mongerings that were going on due to New Year's and millennial fears, as if the year was going to end in 2000. I think people should remember about the stock market crashing because they didn't put the date reset function past 2000 to go into 2001. It reset to whatever preset date before. Not even just stock market, just every computer video. You know, anybody woke up the next morning being like, wow, okay, so the date function needed a upgrade for the software, and which was inevitable because they'd already been doing that in etc. But okay, that's another story. We're literally talking about stains in glass right now, which is quite interesting. Let me flip the camera quickly. So I got at the table a bunch of things, and you might not want to ask who lets the sugar in the house for the dog to taste it and find that insulting when there's a bunch of things that people might see the bull brand beef and not want to have any. But if I actually explain about this bottle and how too significant that is, I got the frame rate at a point where it's like I would want to zoom in. That's not a wasp, you know, the ones that have the long tails. The person who put it in there is very scared and some stuff like that to explain later, but we won't start with the sunlight soap. We'll like get right into it while I was holding this and do have a lighter. Gonna try and do this with one hand. As you can already see, there is a stain on the one side of the glass itself. I really hope this does not botch in terms of like just making another one for point's sake on the underside. So, gonna have to light up the paper. Keep it light, keep it lit, keep it lit. And I was trying to find a way of how to make an actual black stain on glass at a point in time, and I realized, well, you know, that's an interesting kind of painting to make using charring of glass, which technically is much quicker to do with paper-wise, but you can just literally like rub it off with a finger. I literally needed to use two hands. Would have been better to put the camera on a stand, to be quite honest. So, you know, even just rubbing the ash on wasn't going to be as effective as that kind of thing there, which is the literal effect to be done. So, let me nestle. Be very, 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 you have to like make it a nice roll of paper. If it's too sparse, this is also part of the lesson you might find in these classes of... I stopped for a moment because we're actually talking about ceramic ware and the kind that it is. I have not actually done that function in the video yet, of the temperature, color changing ceramics that you can actually make. It's an Africa University mug, but when somebody ended up thinking that was witchcraft, I would rather talk about that at a later date, and that really didn't go so well. Like, just focus and be faithful at a point in time. Alright, keep it lit. Use a little bit of the paper. And I got some more here. I remember having done this one time, but with one hand it's not the simplest thing to do because I'm holding the camera. Honestly, making this point was the best thing ever, even in the first instance of doing this. So I'm gonna let that smoke a little bit. Totally unlike Babylon Sins, because really that has nothing to do with actual physical smoke. You know what's interesting? The smell of guava paper. This kind of paper is guava paper. Some people actually don't know that, but the reason they called it that is because they did used to make it from guava. It comes out grayish at max if you try to make the whitish blend of paper. And as for textbooks in Zimbabwe, I'm gonna have to roll it on my knee. while you're looking at that smoldering, like going out without making a stain on the table. It's going to be quite interesting. About the angel that has power over fire. And it sounds so cryptically spiritual to say things like that, but yeah, this is why even doing the whole thing, right? Because God kept telling me, do not be ashamed or afraid of doing things like that. And do not call it like experimental. Oh, now I just realized I can actually apply that to the mug without the hot water. It will actually make sense afterwards, after doing it with the hot water. So we'll get to that in the next or etc. So I'm gonna have to keep rolling this, like for real. Alrighty, and keep explaining some things. Does that glass look stained to you? Like this is a glass that tapers at the bottom of it, getting more darker than the sparse middle part. This one has a rainbow tintish stain to it. Why I brought that up at the beginning point in time is a dude that ran off with the actual lid of one that had the round rim that actually airtights it. There's nobody who's going to keep something in that like that unless they wanted to fermentate of open air even just a little bit. And that being in there, I was trying to imply that there was P. Wasp. P. We're like Mr. Min to a max in a moment. Like you don't have to worry. It's not Mr. Frosty Frosted Glass's problem about you. Dude, if you call that Rust-Oleum, you'd wonder why, and I gotta zoom in for this one, that is called semi-transparent finish. Obscures vision but lets the light shine through for privacy and decorative effects. This was a bit striking for me and questionable. I'm just like, pull that one out of the dude. Yo, this label is like, Mr. Mint, like don't max out yet. Like honestly, it's trying to like hang on the bottom of it. All right, I'm gonna let it hang on the bottom of the Frosty. Whew. Looking at the date, because we had these products in 1999. Because I was like, okay, where's the best before? And there wasn't a best before you're looking for. It's got a ball in it, like spray paint and stuff like that. And there was window cleaner and a bunch of things. All right, so the right way up, that's the one labeling. And on this side, there is no best before, but you can find a manufacturing date or at least a copyright date of 1999, which is consistent with the having come and brought some products from 1997 and 98. First thought for most people would be thinking, ooh, window cleaner from 1999. Would it be something that covers glass or ferments in a way? That was a bit of a sad thing. Dude, what would make you have to have a product like that? You'd be like frosting up the glass on purpose. It's not bad. I mean, that's like white tint. Or well, okay. For privacy and decorative effects. Okay, rust. Starched Rust-Oleum. Anything white and things that have to do with what they call, well, that's one word of direction of understanding in terms of the electrodistillation to actually produce the stuff. We'll like get to the point of understanding, like for real, when I said like this won't burn, like that's so awesome. Nicely lifted brown, like ooh, awesome. Not a single, still going. Thank you, Jesus. Wow. So let's continue with the rolling. I gotta make sure this happens in the right way. Like we actually really have to have a thick piece of wad of paper at the end, at least. Like, oh come on, dude. I'm not about to like wet you and then if I have to spray deodorant, I'd literally have to stop the video recording and then like, I mean the glass is already thoroughly stained, but that's not the point. There's a reason about it. Seems like the table is just getting singed, but like not really. It's just, you know, why I said guava paper is interesting compared to the kind of things you have to deal with like stain wise. Okay. Let's try it once again, just for sakes of trying to, oh, and we've already like made a few marks in it there. Interesting. which is awesome. Just getting the job right. Oh, come on. Don't actually have to be careful or quiet for this one, but that's an interesting thing that would be necessary. So putting that under the glass, because the paper and the color of it is, we want to at least get that to be seen. Seems to be dwindling, almost time efficient, just a tiny little bit of a spot. Right, we're getting there, like we're totally getting there. Don't worry, it's not arson, it's nothing at all that has anything to do with things destructive, but literally trying to show people a very much of a robbery of a picture, especially how the wording and everything that I'm saying comes out. Because by the time people will try and accuse you of certain things, okay, we started with one spot there that is similar to it. We are literally sufficiently at the point of, let me just let it, like, will it darken a bit? Okay, one. Okay, you can see the darkening of it, right? We should be in some relation of the frosted glass. And I'm gonna also let this one chill, but, you know, put that right here. You know, take note of why I said, you know, this is rainbow stained. Like, it's like, wow, what rainbow stained it is. Obviously flame, and two, the amount of people that don't know that sand is what glass is made of, as well as the way that bricks are made, and actually the, you know, the bottle making of glass is, and well, anything glass or even just windows, some people have a lack of knowledge of. But okay, we're starting with some kind of basics, and oh my gosh, the frost is stuck to the bull brand corned meat. At this point in time, you don't want to like pre-hand, you know, something I would have said later, be like, if you can't understand why you're going around in squares, try circles. Thinking about locks. Bro Locksmith would be quite interested. So this can is quite interesting as well. I'm gonna add the flash so you can see that much of it. On the top, is it readable? Okay. To open, insert a quarter wide flat blade screwdriver in slot. The bro literally opened, or tried to open this, missed that as where it was supposed to be, you know, ended up scratching. I think you can see the scratches there, which is bad because the person hated the English language or didn't want to read. Very much understood it. Very easy to read, even if not having spoken it, which is one of the things, even when I learned Shona, I was like, you know, if you speak it more by the Holy Spirit telling me, you know, you really understand it. The thing was just not having those people to speak it with. So remove by rotating handle is pretty simple after that's been done. But the beautiful part, let me just put it in my lap here. Because it ends up being that point of where that seems like it's done for safety, but not really. Let's be honest, kids are supposed to be able to understand this sort of thing. I'm so serious, it's that deep and that much why the devil would attack me, to be like, oh no, look, if he walks around in town, he's gonna have that on him, but it's okay. I'm actually on rest time right now. Why I'm doing this, you should see how this stuff is based on the fact that this is a 1999 product, and it is frosted glass, semi-transparent finish, obscures vision but lets the light shine through for privacy. I couldn't understand it. For the sakes of spirit and truth, right? That transparency are the one places of all things that we have any safety in. I'm actually gonna have to get a rag and like show you the thing about this stuff. Like, it's like, wow, it literally makes things dirty with whiteness on it. So after you've sprayed it, here's the thing, the texture of it is like white sludgish. You like thinking of the white paint chips that you're usually used to, but you like let it dry, and even if I wipe it off with something right now, look, literally see it smudge. That seems like it's cleaning anything, but it is really smudging. And where I'll show you this is on an actual window. Literally, like, okay. There's a better than that part. It seems like it's a bit still there, but that's not the case. So just letting it dry for a bit. If you wipe it off with anything, it's very smudgy. So yeah, let me get the towel of it. Let me try to wipe it off, and it's actually literally hardening. At that point in time, it's like the starch that you spray when you're ironing. It's actually hard right now already. Like it's already dry. Even like on my fingertips. Okay. That is literally its purpose. Do you actually understand that? Like the point of cleansing and staining, you'd be like, well, you know, dirt is not in flesh, but is really in spirit. Sorry, I'm just checking if my finger was over the microphone hole. And some people don't understand that, thinking that dirt is in the flesh. It has a purpose, obviously, and that's one of those things. People will talk about tinted windows for cars and whatnot, but okay, this is for houses and basic things like that. Like literally. That's what's like, yo. Well, like Mr. Minute and a Max. Like at the Max, people be like, no, we need Mr. Minute the Max for this. And this is actually an old one too. I actually didn't look at the best before date clearly enough to remember it that much. 2020, it's more recent, but the point being, well, in the same. Okay. Spraying that on would now have you at a very serious points of having to scratch it off. With the towel. You can see the obscurity that it's talking about and whatnot. Okay. I'm gonna leave that one there right now. And the point of having to move around has left too much to not imagination, but whatever you've seen on the table, which is quite interesting because I have not even started, like, the context of the way I wanted to present things. It's not even supposed to look like comedy, and I knew it wasn't going to be at first, but the way I thought of it was quite funny. You know, like 2 words. When it comes to things that are singed, which means flame applied and burnt a little bit, they usually use the word for, like, let's say hair or like something woolen, and it's just gently like singed, flame applied, and you're like, oh, dude, something singed my furry coat or hoodie and stuff like that or something. That's not a singe. Somebody actually put a stain there that was not there even from 2023, and it was in the midst of just before having gotten the prints made and whatnot on the back, just personally owned clothes. So this is like so interesting on the word singed, because when you think about it, you're like, oh wait, tainted and singed. Or even if you start with like singed then tainted, you'd be like, it's so it's stinged. It's like singed and tainted. It's like, look at it. Like, oh my gosh, this is such a stingy picture. Oh my gosh, look at all that. It's a stingy picture. Turning the light off. That is such a stingy painting. Can you see it? Stingy. Wait, it's on the other side. Wait, this one? Oh, okay, wait. Yep, it's a stingy picture. It's stained and singed. Yep, this one's on the bottom side, so it's like, wow. It's not a funny and humorous thing to think of certain things like this. I'm going to have to turn the light back on. That might be a bit more interesting for the second part of things. Not rearranging anything at all. We're just going like right into it right now. Everybody knows the cotton wool balls that we use to scrape, and you never ever actually have to use sunlight. Well, sometimes. Depends on what you're cleaning, how you're cleaning it. And oh my gosh, it's a non-sticky pan that's all clean to the base. Wait, we'll get back to that later. Who let the sugar in the house? It's sunsweet and it's brown for the dogs to eat it. Not as funny as you think sometimes, but it really is humorous. So they call that Scotch-Brite multi-purpose heavy-duty steel wood. That's a really small teacup. Flint and steel. Remember the piezoelectric lighter expo? Remembering like lighters that have the roller. It's flint and steel. Steel cups, steel plates. Okay, well, let's kind of like think this out for a bit. So somebody would ask, they'd be like, okay, so if you like, you know, scrubbing like a dry one, okay, like a still, like, okay, it'd have to be a flint plate. What is flint exactly? That word given maybe for a multi compound of things that, okay, what is steel as well? You know, there's iron, then there's zinc, and there's copper, and there's, well, what's the other one? Silver. Iron and silver, because it's a gray color, having something to do with it. But now, here's the thing. And I brought made a little couple of stinges from the steel wood. More bull beef label trying to stick to them where they'd been placed at the moment, right? And you're seeing ashes and hoping not to think from dust and... Wait, I gotta flip the camera for this one. If you are still thinking that the dust of the earth, that the serpent licks, is anything that has to do with actual physical dirt or dust or granules, you are very wrong. It actually has to do with doctrinal and teaching politics that will try and act like that is not anything good for man. Breathing-wise, touching-wise, tasting-wise. You know how salt tastes in your mouth, now how it melts, anything else as well. Anyway, we'll get back to that. So about the stinges of wool, right? Again, I'm gonna have to like, let's use the glass. Like put this at a place where this is a bit of a foreign understanding to some people, that when you light it up, it has this that happens to it. Okay, it's a really small bit, and it actually does light up. Thank you, Stinge, for like, you know, I should have had the light on. Well, I can have it on afterwards. It has a sparkling, crackly effect to a little bit of a degree, an actual like immediately turning yellow, orange, hot, right? That's the beautiful thing about steel wool. They come with a bit of a coating and an additive that makes them very brittle. So when you're scraping, the actual steel of it helps becoming a cleaning agent. It literally does. Like it really does. And that's why it like gets smaller and smaller. If you leave it there after you've applied water, then it like you know, it looks like rusts. It gets brown. Well, that's the thing about steel. Left to open air is different when applied water, then left to open wear over a prolonged time, becoming brown-wise. And you're just seeing like the application of heat to it. A lighter is not a lot of heat. Like you can see the blue part at the bottom of any lighter flame, even if you turn the heat up a bit, still understanding that much. If we do apply more of that to the steel, you see that it is literally maxing out at that color. So, oh, there we go. That's exactly what I was trying to show. Oh, awesome. They sparkly. Cool. Should we like see how much more sparkly this one wants to get? You get more sparkly steel? Okay, you're cool. Yeah, that part of things, interesting, is getting dark. Like I mentioned the time because of seeing that light across the yard at Banana Tree Bros. No, he did that on purpose. Was supposed to throw me off and be reasonably, oh no, he saw the red light from the window or something. I don't know what he's gonna say. He's one of those people that have been spying on the Facebook posts and stuff ever since. Just, dude, you don't even want to call it a WhatsApp conversation. If someone sends you a message after planting banana trees in your yard, and they're like, oh, I received a bunch of instructions, you'd be like, based on you claiming there was a garden here for a whole year period, if it wasn't anything of that nature. And when this house that you're in was constructed, I was there before anybody inhabited it, talking about the actual builders. They did not put a sprinkler system on the inside of our fence. you think to yourself, would you even want to ask what he's talking about? List of instructions concerning technique exposing life story. You're like, no, block is not an understatement, but just for basic security reasons is another small read. You literally ridicule the actuality of it. Your internet connection, whenever having Wi-Fi here, for LAN has been basic in our neighborhood, and it not being in the place it was at the finishing of the construction of his house, noticing the change into his driveway, literal, and by the point in time of, it's not even confrontation, just visiting him as a neighbor, asking about the sprinklers. You're seeing it there, he's acting like he has no idea about the move of it. You're like, yes, sis. But this goes right to the roof of your house. You've seen the cable and the technique exposing life story stuff. And I'm like, wow. By that time now, which is the next year, saying, I received a list of instructions. Apparently, this is supposed to be for you to ask, oh my gosh, what instructions were they? Were they for me to is it an escape hatch? Is it an escape? You don't even want to go there. You're just like, Lord Jesus. Spirit and truth, communication, confirmation, affirmation, some things that some people don't really care to realize. So in terms of, and I have to be honest here, the beginning of the video was not supposed to have that light going on at his house. You didn't want to have to think, you didn't have to think about the line of sight from where you sit in the kitchen. Oh, let me flip the camera. At this point in time, you'd be like, oh dude, you know your next door neighbor, Miss Munyami, and Simba Munyami hasn't been there for a while, and you're like, oh, and I have to view it like this from a zoom in with the camera. Perfect line of sight to the windows at that guy's house. The white that you see there, Jesus, again with the pinch zoom, are actually literally the side of the house. And interestingly, when his house was being built, the builders were able to allow me to actually see the premises and whatnot. They were like, wow, what do you think of it and whatnot? And I was like, okay, interesting that you even asked me that. This side of things, well, there's the Mr. Walton's house there, and there's another peripheral from the outside that will be later exposed for something else, at least. Hopefully not the seed bombings of, like literally that side, besides this side that I showed you, the tree clearing and the line of sighting. Like at night you can literally see the windows where you saw that red light. You're like, wow, okay, these guys are well, God is revealing things, and they think that they're conspiring things. Yeah, so we have literally finished on the flint part of things. The rest of the stuff that's on the table, we're gonna have to flip a light on for real, because it's 6 p.m. now. We had started like 4:30. That's another observation I would have liked to make, but hadn't yet. How long does it take for basic full daylight to actually go down, called sunset? This rate is generally about 45 minutes to half an hour, depending on the day itself specifically, as can be seen. So let me do the next take of it in more context of, hoping somebody doesn't want to see beef. And if you look at this glass, the International Bar Association, I wonder who passed the bar, because after that somebody was looking at this and was like, oh my gosh, it's a TeQ turned backwards and there's nothing to hide there. Oh, there's black mugs and such. Oh goodness, is he gonna eat the beef or the chibuku? Is that food and drink? But by this time, and I'll like literally give this with ease and happiness. You see how that beef is hanging? Okay, it's the lid of it. Replace soy meal in a glass. What? It's not creatine, by the way. These used to be quote-unquote vitamin drinks. Now we have to move the rainbow-stained bottle to a place where anything else is visible. By the way, I know how much people really love Nando's. So like, when you go to Nando's and you see bushville braai or anything, like, well, they sell these in the stores, and I know it's like, okay, there's a reason why it's all over there and stuff like that. You like, so do you Nando's chickens at all? Like, do you nan them? Like, from baby chicks, like, for the quarter chickens, you would call them full chickens, but they're always in half. Do you nan those chickens? I mean, Ensure is very milk-based for the most of it. If you know what nan is, Sorry, I did that off camera. If you know what NAN is, and in high school, where the testimony comes in, I once took it upon myself to actually ask for some creatine. Did not have the workout method that some people had. Who let the dogs in for the sugar to be tasted by the cats, and hoping that's not insulting for some people. To see the red seal and hoping that the navy of blue seal with the Salvation Army is not insulted by the Scotch Brite and anything to do with blue steel. That's not an Adam Sandler joke, by the way. The creatine was a very serious point in time because I was like asking myself, does this work? And God was like, dude, why are you asking yourself, what's protein? What's a protein shake? And I was like, exactly. Like the one video where dude, it just had to be majestic. He copped it from, this is a really incredibly small teacup. I did put some tea in there. Someone would ask, okay. I have to zoom, like if I don't zoom out, okay, you can see from the lighter how small the teacup is. Please don't laugh at this point in time where I said, if you keep going in squares, try circles. It's a tricircle lock. I think I'm gonna have to actually zoom in on that. Oh gosh, like it literally is, like I'm serious. If you keep going in on squares, try circles. Oh my gosh, it's got the plastic label still on it. Oh my gosh, Mr. Carter, oh my gosh, And I'm not talking about the ex-magistrate of the Manicaland High Court. He's still practicing, but it's a tricircle made in China. All right. There's a Kweyong around somewhere, but I'm going to avoid getting to that at a point in time. You can see right through the Miranda. Anyway. I'm trying not to laugh about the issues, but I'm not even. The creatine issue, no, seriously, in high school was quite interesting. I literally found it just to be a protein shake. There's a reason why the beef is here. Contains 26 mechanically deboned meat and 14% vegetable protein with 20% minimal actual lean meat. Okay, the lean and other people's issues, but protein. It's getting dark, guys. I want to turn on, in fact, let me do that. It's really important. It's really important. Oh my gosh, like, yeah, I'm not even that one. Like, wow, let me put the, okay. We're looking at corned meat, right? Corn, like, it literally means putting corn in meat. Any kids who have ever had candy that is called candy corn would notice at a point in time, this was an interesting fullness of time for people who had issues. These sweets and things, adding ginger, cinnamon, peppermint, the kinds of peppermint. There's a kind of peppermint where, I'm sorry, I have to be very clear about it. There's a kind of peppermint where it's very much more musky than the general peppermint, which is more menthol, considerably more used to people having it in the sweets and suckers that are, well, not suckers exactly, just the little candies or the white balled ones or stuff like that. When they started putting that in everything, and I mean licorice style, like mixing the ginger and the peppermint and the cinnamon as well, some kids got like, well, not grossed out, but just confused flavor-wise in terms of the flavor politics of whatever was considered candy. Weird, interesting stories of experience. I noticed in Zim, sherbet should not be a far realization from a sweet called fizzy, literally called fizzy. Now we have fizzy drinks. A drink labeled fizzy is the actual label of it with different flavors. Orange, strawberry, so not strawberry. The purple one, which is technically supposed to be blackberryish or grape, but then, you know, the issue there being the exact flavor of what soda applied carbonatedness is. The general standard of each, you know, using those words is really very vague because each and every single individual product has, you know, its own issues. The fizzy sweet, like, not being found anymore was weird because I was like, why wouldn't they have that in sherbet as well? Then there are these things called apricots. I'm sure you still find those somewhere, but the people that will actually buy them. And then they made a sweet called pango. Well, it might not have been in Zim. It might have been imported too, but that label was given by a Zimbabwean. Pango, little tiny sweets that were made just for change giving, like how the little crystal mints and such are actually given. They won't give you crystal assorted, like the caramel and the raspberry flavored one and the lemon flavored one, like that kind for chain sweets, just the mint ones, because it's the cheapest ones to use for mint. We are going somewhere. Sorry, I quickly flipped the camera button. Why we were talking about steel, why we were talking about corned meat, why we went through all that in stained glass, which I said, this is robbery. That is a really, really stingy, singed and tinted painting that we are looking at here, in terms of people's understanding how much knowledge there is. When you look at the other details of corned meat, mechanically deboned poultry, beef. Mechanically deboned doesn't always mean the bone's removed. It actually means included in the mashing. It's quite interesting about that. If anybody's had mincemeat manufacturing experience, or the other people try to keep it secret but it's not really. Okay, beef and or sheep and chicken hearts. The thing about beef, right? That why it says it twice. There's different kinds of beef. The wild beef, which you'd call wildebeest, or there's buffalo. If you've ever tasted kudu, it is also a beef kind. Where you get the name beef, you should do a Google search on that one, because a cow, getting its name from the word cow, a bull being the actual male version of it, the female one being a cow, and I think they do have different flavors. They do. One has udders, the other one doesn't. One is male, one is female. And secondly, even for your chickens, broilers and such, and even cocks as they call the other ones, by the time they are processed, the names given to them are different from the actual fruit that they came from. This is one of those things that people don't understand by naming as such. So and or sheep and chicken hearts, and that's the thing about the taste and flavor of. Some people wouldn't have had the experience of knowing that chicken hearts kind of taste like beef, or livers of certain things kind of taste like the beef or liver of other things. And okay, that technically means the word beef of it is general meat other than innards, mainly around the bones, or just that kind of flesh that grows. Why it's called steak sometimes. And for porks and pig, that's another issue, because some of the pork parts from pigs aren't actually called by the pork derivative. The interesting search on any place will tell you about the history where the Anglo-Saxons would be the ones in differentiation from the name between the actual animal and the fruit from it, depending if it's mincemeat, depending if it's steak, depending if it's lean or etc and whatnot. But the word beef being one of those things, the word cow being another one of those. So beef collagen, oh goodness, that's seemingly technically for some people political. Cornstarch, that's beautiful. Vegetable protein, soya, phosphates. These E numbers, we've explained this in the technique exposing life story reasoning for why partakers part 3 and a bunch of things. Okay, well, not exactly in the life story, but in the Revelation 18 snapback being connected to, right? People just see those numbers and don't really care to look them up. Some of them have alcohol, by the way. Water, alcohol, sugar, and proteins and carbohydrates have carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen as their base elements. Okay, so dextrose agents, sodium nitrate, iodine. We did say we didn't want that to be insulting. All right, which is really awesome, because we know that salt is basically sodium based. There are lots of different kinds. Sea salt and distilled and electrolysis distilled salts are a lot different when you have to add the iodine physically. So potassium nitrate is quite awesome, because iodized salt has magnesium and potassium, and permanganate has an issue to do with the potassium nitrate and the nitraticity of it. I just made that up almost. E20, I forgot the number of it, that's also in noodles, 2-minute noodles that actually has all alcohol, but we've already covered that sugars, oils, proteins and carbohydrates have the base elements that alcohols do, which is carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. So, and the manufacturer in a facility that uses wheat and gluten. It's the beautiful part, because people don't actually know. Oh, there's the word that you'll find on the internet. B-O-E-E. Well, the O and E are connected. Boof. And chorus, which is it gets bovine and also pig meated. And some people don't actually realize for the actual contents. So that's in another language. When it's now telling you, and that should be, let me see, viande and conserve ingredients, viande, viole, mexian, equipment, it's almost French, but you'd have to be a bit more clear with maybe some yeah, it's French. Okay. De boeuf, sel sucre, phosphates, dextrose, antioxidant. Right. It can end up being Spanish and Portuguese derivative at a point in time, but we have just gone through a lot of information in 43 minutes, which was not enough time for me to do the full presentation. And it's getting dark. I'm serious. Like, that's not how I even wanted that to come out. Like, all of it, we like focused on corned meat, which is not even corny at all. And at this point in time, during all that, I'm like, Nando's chicken. Like, do people Nando's chicken? I don't have a bottle of Nan to speak about that. And these very small teacups were there for a reason. There's sugar granules and tea in there. On this one, there's the sugar. And this one, there's the tea. It's actually a cup of tea I just had just now. Whew. I said, if you end up going in squares to try circles, this has been said before. This should be elaborated on at a point in time. Why I say so? People being forced to clean with steel wool balls and, Jesus, wow, having flint-based cups and anything that could be, teacups and stuff like that would be an interesting talk. It happened at a point in time, and sparks flying. In many ways, that some people would actually start laughing. Relatably in a relationship was, oh, there's Raja's hot curry. Oh, Jesus, wow. Okay, this one is where I'm ending. Like, we're leaving the window lean, the Mr. Min to a max on the side of it. Like, we're totally done there. Raja Hot has a unique blend of high quality spices, including coriander. I miss the seeds so much. They're pretty awesome. They used to use coriander so much to make the sausages in the butcheries very specific and particular. Noticing that people loved when coriander is more fermential, but the Cain Methi, this one. And kids asked about it in grade 6 and 7, this being 1996, such about it. Does it have meth? Is it a plant? And some people didn't want to answer until someone would bring up poppy seeds. And actually thinking about what is in a lot of the other things, talking about, well, the teas people make and whatnot. If you did not know, and I'm totally bringing up a nutshell of a whole lot of information. And they call, yeah, Scooby's like, oof, dude, don't even stop, like, yawning there. Is a good sign. So, silver tea. You can actually see, okay, you can see it if I roll it around there. Ooh, and it's shiny. There's Tanganda tea, there's that tea, there's a bunch of others, rooibos tea as well. There are 1,000 different kinds of teas, 1,000. Do they tell you which one is in the packet, or they just give it a label and a name? If they change it, you'll think the product has gotten better or something. That is not the point, but really that is why I'm asking that question, in terms for you to answer to yourself when you hear the word Tanganda or whichever tea you're used to, or green tea, for sakes of some people thinking they're going health-wise, to replace and ensure some things that are a little bit stained. Like, this is a stingy picture. Like, no, we've never stinged anybody of general knowledge, and that's not insulting. Like, literally, when you look at these little tiny mugs, I mean, like, not people's looks on their faces, and some people ask, who's Raja? Just look at the methi and the paprika and the chili. Everybody knowing that chili doesn't burn, paprika either, and when you look at red paint, the word curry, it is a debate of some people understanding that the color yellow, and what do they call it again? It's got a specific name. Like if I take a little bit of time, it would make too much more sense of why you wouldn't be able to get up out of the chair, then rush to the corner of where the spices are, because we had it before. That makes rice yellow, or they call it rice coloring and stuff like that in other places. But just between the paprika and chili, there are multiple different kinds of chilies. They all have their flavors, peppercorns and all kinds of peppers, even green and black and yellow and red. The green, red, and yellow of the general know from the bell pepper is not always all kinds of peppers that are there. There are a lot more. So when you see this word, people really rush to conclusions. And why I wanted to cap it off with that, you see these little mint flowers in a plate you usually find at a restaurant that are involved in the spices. There's a lot of different kinds of them. In Zimbabwe, we have these 3-leafed clovers that you'd find growing amongst the moss of your driveway, in the rainy season, in the wet season. Actually, usually all the time. It depends where it is and where the seeds do fall and etc., right? So, and it's a sad context of reality just for history's sake, but the beautiful part in the all-encompassing 1 Timothy chapter 4 part of it. Kids being told, well, let's say they're dining at a restaurant with their parents for, like, you don't want to call it a first time or any, just that involvement, being told not to eat the mint leaves because each kafu it's because it's not black people's food is really bad, to say that. There's adverses of this kind of thing, but these 3-leaf clovers, they are sour in flavor, the quote-unquote traditional people just being known for promoting it or knowing that it's good for people to even chew and eat, to pick them out of the ground, and once in a while it's good for you. You'll realize something from doing it. Technically is the general supposition, and when you begin to do that, you begin to realize it is a sour flavored and bitter flavored, little leaf. The mint now being generally bitter, not sour. We're talking flavors here. I said every different chili has its flavors. So like saying coriander, it's a very interesting one. Heat applied, that's why we're going on the second round of these interesting color changing bottles. Well, now it's dark, and in the light it has been revealed that these are color changing. Oh my goodness, they're not transparent entirely. And they say, well, that's basically the issue. If you have been going in squares, try circles. It would make sense. So yeah, ending at that point in time, the adverse of you don't want to talk about 4-leaf clovers and if they exist, or people thinking about lucky leprechauns and rainbows and pots of gold. That's not the point. The flint and steel would make more sense to talk about there. It's been an actuality. So it's dark, dude. I want to flip the light on, but I'll save it for the next one. And I'm gonna put these out all at once. It is an hour and some that's going on. That pot, would you understand someone who would scrape off non-stickiness, thinking it to be dirt? Would you understand a person like that? No, I'm serious. Yeah, okay, fine. It's a stained pan. We just panned the camera to another angle of view, hoping that's not insulting for the red seals and the blue seals and the Salvation Army understanding of how we nan those chickens. But honestly, it's really a fact when you understand that, well, I haven't had that beef yet, and I was hoping to have said something really artistically cool about it, but we've already been saying it over and over. The rainbow stained glass is really getting annoying for some people, and the fact that that's actually in there, well, from the past experience, would be more to say about a certain person named Denford Mondondo, who is really bad at that self-understanding. I'm gonna refer at that time. You always hope for the better for people, but chitsotsi and thievery and lying and appearing as if some sort of macho-ness and a bunch of other things in terms of all the other technique exposing life story individuals on both sides of the family of all-encompassing that I've ever encountered. I'm not going to act otherwise in terms of the actual reality and such, right? So it's oh my goodness, and there falls out that light. It's a really stinged picture. It's stained and singed. It's well, is it tainted and singed, or is it stained and singed? Well, singed and tinted just a little bit. You'd have to turn the light off now because we're a bit in darkness and such. Well, I said I'm gonna leave the video there for now. We're looking at things here and we're talking about a bunch of stuff about, not going in squares and trying circles. So yeah, I'm gonna leave this here. Since this tea literally had before doing this, kind of makes it a bit Irish, but you can't call it that because apparently you can only do that when you're in Ireland. And you're like, okay, it's Irish coffee because you put brandy or whiskey or any kind of in the tea that you're having, and well, it's so dark. Oh my goodness, gotta get the light. Got it. And it seems like I'm acting. I'm really not, dude. I'm really not. I'm just like being accommodative for people that are gonna see the video clip as it all plays out. Totally not done yet. Did not want to turn the lights on. We'll be able to. This one's not supposed to finish yet. Why does it keep going? It didn't let me finish my sentence. If you had my job, you'd drink too and eat. And I think everybody does. So who lets the sugar in the house that the dogs find not insulting? Well, yeah, I'm totally you're going to areas of light for the end of this one. When I had just gotten to the point of wanting to mop, God was like, dude, if you do some reflecting, it would make much more sense of the time you're spending not only with yourself but with me and other people's questioning. You look at the last year and some basic things. Having you mentioned zany, self-proclaimed relatives which are not. Dude, there's no brother, sister, you do not even want to say in Christ, bro, of any kind of person who do things that are certain. I'm not about to creep up on you sleeping and touch you, and dude, tampering with your room is far from me. Even leaving you pie without you wanting it. Taking and swapping and replacing things is another issue. We don't even want to go there. Pointing fingers, yes. Looking up because our redemption has not only been nigh but at hand in our Heavenly Father's holy kingdom. It leads you to the point of understanding why some people are insulted. By your awareness, by your understanding, by your knowledge, humor, have not told a single joke the whole time. By the time I watch this, it's going to be interesting. Like I said, not even finished yet. This specific part of the clip being an hour. The other one having been like, well, give or take 10 minutes. No, we'll see how the rest of it goes. And I'm literally going to leave it uncut like that. Because that bro's light shining across across the opposite yard, which is not in the next door terrain. Banana Mana Fontana issues. I'm not even gonna act like his saying, oh no, I was sending my gardener in to harvest the bananas. They would go with the bananas. The bananas and sell them. Okay, wow. I've been here for at least a year since your claim of when having been doing that. Why wouldn't you even talk to the person who's left there, having lived there from 1999, every single other person void? No, it's like not valid of I was given a set of instructions, and at that point you've gone to city council, and they're also like, okay, this guy is making a validly invalid point of already voidedness, trying to dwell in voidedness. Oh, it's just sad. So yeah, I'm gonna catch y'all in the next video. I'm gonna let it roll for real, like literally smoothly into the next one. The entire point of that was, this is a really stingy picture, stained by, well, if something's stained by flame, the tinging of something is like tinting by singeing, Unless you call it stinging, and I mean, that word's usually used for people who don't want to give anything. That's a lot of information. So you can't really call it stinging. I'm very interested that came out like that. Peace, y'all. Until the next reel in a little bit.